Time to pull up a chair. We've got another great story for you today in the rLounge. Sometimes, the only thing that gets stronger after a breakup is your ex's audacity. Today in the rLounge, the real drama begins after the goodbye. Up first, a brave mother's struggle for her child's safety. Am I the a-hole for putting a restraining order on my ex-fiancé after he took our newborn forcibly from the hospital to his mom while I was still hospitalized? I apologize if this goes on for a while, but I kind of wanted to explain the whole situation. Also, sorry for the run-on sentences and improper grammar. New mom here without much sleep. I, 28 female, and my, 27 male, ex-fiancé had a complicated relationship. Since the beginning of the relationship, I gave up a lot for him because one of my views was to be a stay-at-home mom when the time came to build a family, and thought it would only be fair to do a lot of what he wanted in return. I ended up moving far away from my family as he asked, and eventually got pregnant with a child. I want to say that we had a pretty toxic relationship before this. We would fight a lot about petty matters, but during those fights, he would lose his temper and throw stuff against the wall, and even went as far as punching 2 holes in our walls. The worst it got was when I told him we were breaking up and he swallowed a bunch of pills, which I made him throw up. During these fights, he would call me names and belittle my contribution to our relationship. I think one of the reasons why I stayed was because I loved him very much. I knew he had some pretty deep trauma from when he was younger, which I related to in some way. Although he hurt me a lot before and during the pregnancy, I always stayed because I told myself he loved me and would never physically hurt me, even though there were times I was afraid he would. I had a pretty rough pregnancy and didn't feel well for most of it. I ended up getting induced early because of preeclampsia and had a pretty rough labor and delivery. Our son was in the NICU for a week due to having low blood sugar levels, so for the first few days, we cared for him in the hospital setting. The night we finally took him home was probably the roughest. He was pretty distressed from the change of environment and wouldn't stop crying throughout the night. We were both taking turns trying to calm him down. Eventually, my ex snapped and said he hated our son and that he wished that he could take him back. He said that as he was holding him, he pictured himself slamming our son against the wall and just wanted to act on it. I remember taking our son and telling him to calm down and that he couldn't blame our son for anything. I tried telling him he was just feeling that way because he was stressed, but in that moment, I was terrified of him. I did not sleep all night because I stayed up watching our son and my ex. The next day, I called my family and his and told them what had happened. Everyone agreed on the fact that what he had said was wrong and he needed to start taking therapy for his anger issues. That same day, I was pretty tired from not sleeping and was taking a nap. While I was asleep, my ex was trying to feed our son and started freaking out when he wouldn't wake up to eat. Panicking, he called his parents and told them of this. I woke up from the shouting between he and his parents, which they were telling him to take our son to the ER. I woke up disoriented and asked what was wrong, and he told me our son wasn't fully waking up to eat. I tried calming him down and told him he was fine and that we could wake him up with a wet wipe like they had taught us at the NICU. At that moment, his mother told me to shut the F up and that I was a terrible mother for not being more concerned. Upset, I stood up and took our son to the changing table where I woke him up with a wet wipe like we were taught. Our son woke up normally, and my ex saw that. He also saw that I was clearly upset from what his mother had said and asked if I thought it was a mistake to have him added to the birth certificate. I said yes, and that made him get extremely upset. He threw the birth certificate at my face while I was holding our son and started banging his head against the wall in the other room. Afraid of what he could do to me and our son, I texted his grandmother to come over to calm him down, which she ended up doing. After all of that happened, to make matters worse, my C-section ended up getting infected and I had to be hospitalized again. While I was in the hospital, his mother ended up visiting us from out of state. The original plan was that his parents, which live out of state, would come visit after the baby was born. I will say his mother never really liked me because of the fact that I stopped working when I got pregnant. She always told my ex that I needed to contribute financially, even though him and I agreed to me not working beforehand. When she arrived, she was pretty unhappy that the baby was staying at the hospital with us. She didn't like the fact that she had to drive down 30 minutes to see the baby. Eventually, she asked me if it would be okay if they could take the baby back to her apartment for one day during the day. Apprehensively, I agreed because I wanted to be nice and appease her. The plan was that my ex would take our baby down in the morning and would come back in the evening after being done with work. After I agreed and she went back to our apartment, I realized she would have to drive down first to the hospital so she could be in the back of the car with our son on the drive to our apartment since the car seat was too big and I was concerned for his breathing. I told my ex to inform his mother of this, and after he did, she called us completely hysterical. Screaming at the top of her lungs, she threatened my ex that if he did not bring the baby back to our apartment at that exact moment, she would call the cops on him and report him for the hole in the wall that he had made on our apartment. She threatened to take the baby away from us. Afraid at that point, my ex decided to take our son against my will. I screamed and begged him not to take our baby as he walked away with our son. Unable to do anything because I was plugged into the IV, I called the nurse and told her to inform security. Unfortunately, they couldn't stop him in time. Frantically, I called my ex and his mother and told them to bring my son back to the hospital with me where he belonged. I begged and begged, told him that our son needed to be with his mother, and I was also trying to breastfeed him. The next day, I decided to file a temporary restraining order because my ex refused to bring my son to the hospital, and the cops wouldn't do anything about it. With this, I was able to get CPS to bring my son back to me. He himself had filed an emergency ex parte for custody of our child and lied on the declaration saying I had neglected our son while being in the hospital. Thankfully, because I filed the restraining order first, the ex parte was dismissed by the judge, and now the date for the restraining order is set for the future. I'm finally home with my son recovering from this whole ordeal. A part of me keeps thinking about whether it was the right thing to do. I still love him so much and can't put it on my mind how he was able to do such a thing to me at my worst when I needed him and my son the most. I don't even know if he even loved or loves me anymore. I feel bad at times he can't see his son right now, but at the time I can't help but think how he and his family did not touch their hearts when they took my son away from me while I was in such a terrible state and needed my son the most. Also, the fact that he filed the custody order to keep our son while I was still in the hospital and made up all these lies just breaks my heart. My family tells me I can never forgive him for what he did and that if he truly loved me, he would have stood up and fought for me against his mother's demands. Every day I struggle with these thoughts and wonder if I could have done something differently. Am I the a-hole? Edit. I just wanted to thank everyone that's commented so far and given their advice. I really appreciate everyone's concerns. My son and I are no longer in the same household as my ex, and I'm staying with my family, who is helping me while I recover from my C-section wound. Second edit. I've been trying to read everyone's comments. For everyone saying it was dumb of me to get pregnant when I knew how he was, I know now that was a mistake, and I should have left the relationship before I made such a huge step. A part of me stayed because our relationship outside was good, and he was always kind and loving when there were no arguments. For some reason, it was always when we had arguments that a switch would flip inside of him. I know it was stupid of me to think I could ever change him, and no, I won't be returning to him. It hurts because I still remember the good times. That is why I wrote, I felt conflicted, but I know I can't let memories blind me from the fact that he's a threat to our son. And I know it would be selfish to go back only because I miss what could have been. I talked to CPS the night they brought my son back to me, and they told me it was on me whether or not I went back to him. She said it seemed like he had a lot to work on himself, and that if I did go back and another incident happened, then they would take our son away from the both of us. She also recommended I myself take therapy from all the trauma I've gone through recently. I will definitely be doing that. I know it's 100% my responsibility to keep my son safe, and I will do that. Our court date was supposed to be last week, but he got a lawyer last minute, as soon as he received all the overwhelming evidence I had against him, and pushing the date till next month. I wasn't going to get a lawyer at first, but seeing how he got a lawyer, I'm afraid they might try to pull something. Thank you everyone for all the advice. Let's see what kind of comments the community has. First up, not the a-hole. You would be the a-hole if you let your ex or his mom near the baby again. If he wants to see his son ever again, talk with CPS about supervised visitation and the condition that he goes to therapy for his anger issues. You need to sue for full custody. Your ex is a danger for your baby's life. Imagine letting him alone with the baby and him punishing the baby against the wall like he did with things already. He's not stable right now. Someone else chimes in. Would you trust him to stay alone with your baby even for a minute? Or are you prepared to spend your nights not sleeping in fear of him acting on his anger? What exactly do you love in the person who thought about slamming your baby against the wall, stole the baby from the hospital so that his crappy mom did not drive 30 minutes to see the kid? Not the a-hole at all. But if you allow that man back in your life and don't fight tooth and nail to keep his toxicity away from your child as much as possible, you will be a huge a-hole. He needs therapy, anger management, and to cut off his toxic family to start with, for the time being, and from what you described, he is dangerous. Honestly, OP, if you let him anywhere near your kid without court-ordered supervision and a full psych eval, you're just as bad. Love may be blind, but it shouldn't be deaf to the sound of head banging against walls or dumb enough to think this won't escalate. Keep him away unless you're into raising a baby and an overgrown toddler with a black belt in wall punching. He sounds like the fiancé from hell. You did a good thing by getting away from him. Don't doubt yourself. What do you make of this? Do you think OP did the right thing? Up next, newfound self-confidence led to unexpected consequences in a marriage. My wife left me after she got in shape and now wants to get back together. I'm not sure why I'm posting this. I probably want some validation as my life turned upside down recently. I, 32 male, was married to my wife, 33 female, for 4 years, and we had a great marriage so far. I was madly in love with my wife. She fell into depression mainly due to her job in 2022. I tried to support her in every way and suggested her going to the gym or doing any kind of sports to de-stress. I had my own depression episode before we got married, and what saved me was going to the gym. She agreed to that, and we started going together. I could not go as frequently as in the past since my workload got heavier after my promotion. However, I tried my best to be there with her. She used to be a bit chubby, which I loved, and after seeing some changes with her body, she started to go there regularly. It also helped her with depression, and she got better. I was really happy to see her get better and livelier. She looked more confident, got more aggressive in bed, and so on. However, after a while, that confidence level started to affect our relationship for the worse. She started going to the parties and going outside to a point she completely stopped doing her share in the house. That proceeded with me seeing her getting flirty with a guy at a meetup we went to. I communicated my feelings to her and she dismissed these. After several of these, I had her sit down with me and told her that she is riding high on her newly found confidence and emotions right now. I clearly stated she should not make decisions or actions according to that confidence right now. I know it well. It was one of my worst traits. I used to be extremely emotionally driven in the past. I suggested we go to a marriage counselor and hell broke loose. She said vile things to me like how she realized she settled down with me after getting better and she could do so much better than me. She said I am insecure and other things. This woman used to be the sweetest person on earth, and I was shocked after hearing the things she said to me. She filed for divorce the following month, and I did not hear much from her other than some lawyer talks. Our court seeing is scheduled to be next month, and my lawyer told me there is a high chance it'll be concluded then. There's not much to share. Similar income, only shared assets is our joint account, similar savings, and no kids. House is my mom's, so it's out of division. I accepted my marriage is going to end like that. Last week she called crying and told me she regrets everything. She apologized over and over, but I felt disappointed. Not angry, not sad, but just disappointed. She did not text nor call me even once since the divorce started. I did not even know where she was since she just left the home. I told her there is no going back now. She has been messaging me nonstop. My family supports my decision and tells me I should not back down. My in-laws were shocked when they heard about the divorce. They're now telling me to rethink everything. I will 99.9% not back down, but as I said, just looking for validation and maybe wanted to vent. Thank you for reading. Let's look at a couple relevant comments from the OP. First up, the OP responds if there was a real reason why his wife left him after getting healthy. The OP responds, I did not even understand why she left me after getting in shape. I am in shape too. It's not like I was overweight. It has been a while since going to the gym before we started together, but I was not in bad shape at all. I could probably get back to my shredded years with 1 year of regular workouts. Someone from the community asked, how long were you separated? Did she tell you why she made the mistake? The OP replies, about 5 months. She did not expect it. I'm not sure what happened that made her call me crying. The OP on if his wife was having confidence with her weight or not. The OP replies, thank you for sharing your perspective. My wife was not even overweight or extremely big, just chubby. It actually made her more attractive for me with all the curves. I would even go so far as to say she was more attractive for me before she lost the weight. That behavior shift just from losing the weight seemed incredibly weird to me. Oof, that's tough, OP. Her newfound confidence just couldn't handle the reality check of responsibility and commitment. And now that reality is knocking like a pesky bill collector. You've made it this far, brother. No need to backtrack into that mess. Keep pushing forward. If nothing else, you've learned that sometimes self-improvement from one person means self-destruction for a relationship. Update. We are officially divorced. There was not much to share, so it went smooth as butter according to my lawyer. I've never talked to her other than through my lawyers as much as she wanted me to. She tried to talk to me one-on-one and get closure, but I just do not want that. It's not that I do not care why she left me, why she did during that time. I just do not want to know. I've been living without her for months now. At first it was difficult and I cried all night some days, but after a few months, I feel like I came to accept everything. What peace will it give to learn what and why when I already accept everything other than hurting me? For once, I want to prioritize my peace of mind in this whole process. My parents and friends are here to support me, and I'm glad that I have such a great support circle. As for what my plans are, renovate my office room in the house, get back to the gym, and live my best life. I've been wanting to renovate my office room for a while now, and that's what I'll start with. I started hitting the gym at the same time. I believe my body is good, but I have some extra fat. Dieting proved itself difficult because I am a tiramisu addict. For the dating part, I uploaded a few apps and tried out how I am doing. I got decent numbers of matches, but I realized I do not feel like doing it right now. I'll focus on my own hobbies, well-being, and wants for now. Thank you for all the support and help in the last post. Let's get a couple comments from the community. First up, I'm really sorry you had to go through this awful experience. I agree with you that closure is just for her, as you shed all the tears and pain you needed to. All the best for you. Keep looking after yourself, and I am proud of how you have handled yourself during this difficult time. From a cyber friend. The OP replies, I think I gave myself my own closure, and the conclusion is having my best life and moving on. That's the best thing I can do. Thanks for the good wishes. Someone else chimes in. When the person who chooses to leave wants closure, just shut the door and keep it shut. They only want to make themselves feel better about their decision, no matter how bad it screwed you over. Bigger and better things to look forward to, OP. All the best. You've already cried those tears, so no need to splash around in the puddle of her regrets. Closure isn't going to magically build you a new office or sculpt those abs, so good on you for focusing on the renovation and gym instead of giving her a free therapy session. So indulge away while you rebuild, one sweet bite at a time. And as for the dating apps, plenty of fish in the sea. But who says you need to dive back in when you can just enjoy the beach for a bit? Keep living your best life, OP. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today in the rLounge. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you soon.